Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Jason from CPA Academy. I am so glad that you are all joining us for today's webinar, 5 Ways to Save in the Procurement Process. You are all in for a real treat. We have Foy Maynor from Paramount who's going to be presenting for you for the next hour. But before we get going, I just want to do a couple of technical checks and some housekeeping, make sure everything's working. If you all don't mind going over to the questions panel of the GoToWebinar control panel, should be docked on the right side of your screen. Just pop open that questions panel. Let me know that you can hear me. Let me know that you can see the title card of the slides up. And while you're in there, let me know where you're listening in from. I always love hearing that information. I see Chad from Denver saying hi. I see New Jersey. I see Maryland. I see Christine in California. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're all spending part of your day with us. If anybody's having any trouble seeing or hearing throughout the webinar, please let me know in this questions panel as well. We'll do the best we can to get your attention back to where it should be for the rest of the session and get everything fixed. Now for a little housekeeping regarding CPE. We here at CPA Academy are going to process credit for this class by the end of the day today. This class qualifies for 1 credit of CPE, and to earn that 1 credit, you have to be logged in for at least 50 minutes of the 60 minutes of the session and answer the polling questions. There will be 4 polls popping up on your screen periodically. Please answer them as quickly as you can by hitting the little radial button and hitting submit on the poll dialog. We here at CPA Academy are going to process credit by the end of the day, and you'll see that in your CPA Academy account, along with an archived recording of the webinar and a copy of the handouts. Speaking of which, if you all don't mind going over to the appropriately titled handouts section of GoToWebinar, you'll be able to download the slides so you can follow along with at home, reference back to in the future. There's also a couple of other handouts in there from Paramount. And I'd also like to let you all know that if you have any questions for Foy, our presenter, please make sure to ask them in the questions panel as well. We might be able to get to 1 or 2 of them while the polls are running. And if we're lucky, we'll have time at the end of the webinar for a Q&A. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Foy Maynor from Paramount. And of course, we want to thank Foy for presenting and for Paramount for being part of today's session. So Foy, please, the floor is yours. Happy to have you.
Jason, thank you very much. It is great to be here, and I do appreciate your time as well as everybody else that is in attendance. So what we're going to talk about today are 5 ways for you or your clients to save within the procurement process. As you mentioned, my name is Foy Maynor. I'm the VP of Sales for Paramount Workplace, and I've been with Paramount for a little over 16 and a half years now. So I've been in the spend management and specifically the requisition and procurement space for quite a while. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you a little bit about Paramount Workplace so that you know who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Then we'll spend a good bit of time talking about trends in the automation of procurement. You know, what should people be looking for and what are clients' expectations as far as moving from a manual procurement operation to an automated procurement solution. And then what are 5 ways or 5 things that you or your client should think about to save in the procurement process. After that, I'll spend a little bit of time in the actual product itself, in order to be able to show you some of the things that we're going to talk about as we go through the slides, so you can get a little deeper and better understanding of the functionality that's involved with an automated procurement solution. And then we'll look at how much could you be saving. One of the pleasant surprises about procurement solutions is that it truly is one that has a very strong return on investment for anybody that needs to be able to manage their spend in this manner. Any of the savings go directly to the bottom line, and we've got a procurement calculator that's going to help you find out what that return on investment is. And then, as Jason said, once we're done with that, we'll hopefully have some time for some Q&A. But one way or another, we will make sure that your questions that you ask do get answered, even if they're actually after the presentation. So Paramount itself was founded in 1995. So we've been doing spend management solutions for a little more than 23 years. And the headquarters of Paramount is just outside of Detroit, in the metropolitan Detroit area. I myself am located just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and then we have other offices around North America in both the U.S. and Canada in order to represent and present our solutions. And what we do offer are spend management solutions that are mobile and web-based cloud solutions. So from a deployment standpoint, you can deploy them on premise, you access them via your browser. They can also be hosted, as well as we also provide software as a service or hosting services for those solutions as well. The overall idea is to make it easy for you and or your clients to access the application to be able to manage their spend. Now, throughout the years, we've found some particular industries that we may have been more successful in than others. This is not designed to be an inclusive list, meaning that if you are outside of any of these industries, you can certainly make use, but these are some industries that you might want to look at that specifically can take advantage of managing spend. And we've got some really good stories to tell in many of these different industries. We've got some very interesting customers in many of these industries. And some of them are common sense. Like if you think about not-for-profits or governments or utilities, it makes perfect sense that they would need to be able to manage, control, and monitor their spending. But there's also sports organizations, casinos, entertainment, racetracks that we have as well that are also customers that use our solution. But keep in mind that pretty much anybody that needs to be able to manage their spend as a part of the procurement process can make use of an automated solution and use that in their environment. Our smallest customer is 3 users. Our largest customer is more than 4,000 users. So again, you need to be able to manage and approve spend. You can make use of these solutions. So our solutions can run standalone, meaning we can run as the system of record for purchasing and procurement. So you do everything within our application, and then we can output files to other financial or back office or ERP systems. So we do have out-of-the-box integration to many of the different mid-market applications that are out there. But just because you don't see a financial or ERP on that list doesn't mean that we either have not done an interface or could not do an interface to them. Again, our product was designed to run independent, but then we also can certainly take advantage of the information that has been set up and leverage that as a part of the overall process. We do support multiple currencies and multiple languages, either for organizations or companies that are outside of the U.S., as well as any companies that also may have locations that might be outside of the U.S. that need to be able to use the application as well. So it is truly an international product or an international solution. And we do annual releases of the product to add additional functionality based upon customer request and or what we're seeing out there in the market. Again, it is a web-based solution. However you are deployed, you are able to access it via your browser. We do support multiple browsers as well as mobile devices. And the overall intent is to give visibility anytime, anywhere, easily, effectively, efficiently, and because of that, there's also multiple authentication modes that can be used to make sure that the information is secure and that those logging in are secure as well. So I'd like to start off with our first polling question here at this point, Jason. And what we're looking for here from our side is, as you're out there in the market, do you see a trend or have any need from a client standpoint for controlling your internal spending processes?
All right, we're going to leave that first polling question open on everybody's screen for about a minute or so. We want to leave ample opportunity for all of you to get your credit. This is the first of 4 poll questions. And of course, I want to remind everybody that if you have any questions for Foy during the webinar, please ask them in the questions panel. Hopefully we'll have some time for a Q&A at the end. We also have Amy from Paramount who's going to be in the questions panel as well, going through questions that she can answer while Foy is presenting. So we've got just about 94% of you and now 95% of you checking in with your answers to the poll question. So I'm going to close this poll down and return to the presentation in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, Foy, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. So as we move to the next slide, this is one of the reasons that we wanted to ask that question. As we've done research with industry analysts, and also done our own analysis, we do see that there is plenty of opportunity in the procurement space. Now, there's many organizations who have a homegrown procurement management solution, and homegrown could mean that it is email-based, Excel-based, or shoe leather-based. So email is obviously, you need something, you email the appropriate person, they may email you back or email it to somebody else for their approval, but there's little to no control over that. If it's Excel based, then you are maybe leveraging an Excel spreadsheet that has some specific information that needs to be found out. But again, you're either printing that or emailing it in order to get it approved and ultimately processed. And then shoe leather is the old-fashioned way of walking around to somebody else's office in order to be able to ask them if you're allowed to purchase something. And then there's the inherent flaws in that particular method because there is no visibility, no controls, or little control in place throughout the rest of the organization. You've also got plenty of people who do not use a procurement solution, or they may use the e-procurement tool that's a part of their financial software or ERP. Now, we have certainly found in our time that many of those solutions that are a part of the financial solution that an organization may be using can be sufficient for basic needs. One of the things we'll talk about in detail here in a few minutes is our approval process. We often see that the tools that are a part of the ERP do not do very well or have very robust approval processes. We'll also talk about budgeting here in a few minutes. And again, we've also noticed that a lot of those solutions don't necessarily correspond to budgets. So as you look at this study, see that there is plenty of opportunity in organizations for adding or upgrading your e-procurement system or solution to become much more automated. Now, I touched on some of the manual procurement components just a moment ago, and when you're using a manual procurement process, your staff spends a lot of time on tasks such as obtaining quotes, creating requisitions, routing them for approval, maintaining vendor compliance, matching invoices to purchase orders, receiving documents, managing exceptions, entering invoices, and general management and oversight. So there's a lot going on there that is manual that you're having to do individually, step by step. And naturally, the longer it takes to perform each of those tasks, the more each purchase order or invoice costs your company or their company. And traditionally, it's been difficult to estimate those indirect costs. So before you implement a procure-to-pay solution, you make sense to analyze the return on investment, answering and asking questions such as, what are you spending now and what are you spending it on? Where do the saving opportunities with automation lie? Can you quantify the potential savings? And what are the first steps to take toward automation? So if you are using a manual procurement process, those are some good places to start in order to determine if an automated procurement solution will work for you. With an automated procurement solution, you're going to get improved visibility into spending. You're going to get company-wide insight into current and planned expenditures from a single source. You're going to get increased productivity because now employees can spend more time on strategic tasks and less on manual data entry and paper chasing. You're going to reduce paperwork because electronic procurement digitizes the purchasing, processing, reducing or even eliminating the need for paper documents. And you're going to get faster transaction speeds with automated workflows, alerts, and reminders. You keep the processes moving and you eliminate or identify the bottlenecks so that they can be removed. You're going to get bolstered buying power because when you centralize the corporate purchasing, you can benefit from quantity discounts and better payment terms from your suppliers. So not only are you going to improve internal processes, you're going to improve relations with your vendors and your suppliers. And ultimately, you're going to increase accuracy by eliminating manual touch points. So you're eliminating the opportunity for errors, and you're going to add rules within the application to prevent the routine mistakes. And then many of the different ways listed here are such as catalogs, approval workflows, budgeting controls, and then visibility and communication between the different departments are things we'll touch a bit more on as we walk through. But you can see, if you notice, the desk is very clean for the automated procurement, whereas in the prior slide, there was a good bit piled up on that desk. So again, make it easier and streamline the requisition process. So the first way that we're going to talk about being able to save in the procurement process is, we know that when a business process is cumbersome and complex, people will naturally look for ways to avoid it. So one of the first steps is to work to make your internal requisition process friendly and efficient so employees are encouraged to use it. In addition to making it easy, make it mobile so employees can submit requisitions and monitor their status from their smartphones and tablets. And by empowering employees with the ability to create requisitions from their mobile devices, they're able to accomplish these tasks on their schedule, whenever and wherever they are working. And in addition, mobile capabilities enable authorized personnel to view and approve requisitions from their team while they're on the go, which again speeds the process and drives efficiency. And mobile solutions have been found to increase user adoption rates, which is a key driver of return on investment in your procurement process. So one of the first things we want to do is make sure we're streamlining the process. And one of the biggest intents of that is to get those users to embrace the change and adopt the solution in order to be able to put that into effect. And when you automate and integrate the procurement departments, you're going to get better integration, improved communication, better visibility. You're going to speed up the process and make it more effective and more efficient. You're going to be able to see where the money is being spent, and you're going to be able to lower those procurement processing costs. So there's definitely advantages to automating the solution and being able to not only make it easier for the initial user to enter and or approve, but then also allow collaboration between departments and visibility into cost across the entire organization. And the second way to save is by consolidating that buying power. So centralized purchasing is one of the single most important ways to reduce unmanaged spending. When purchasing is decentralized, it's difficult to grasp the scale of the type of spending. And if you can't accurately assess what is being spent, on what, and by whom, how can you manage it effectively? Centralized spending increases your company's purchasing power and helps achieve economies of scale, and it also makes it easier to provide careful scrutiny of suppliers and their contracts. When you're decentralized, you've got widespread employees or offices, and they're essentially making purchases as needed, often without a purchase order process, and from unapproved suppliers who may not be in the system, suppliers that you may not have negotiated terms with. And then ultimately, obviously, once those bills get to accounts payable, they're left trying to track down the reason for the expenditure and then why it was purchased, what was the cost, and you can naturally understand the difficulties when those processes are decentralized. So what we're wanting to do here is centralize those processes with a single common solution with rules throughout the process as well as a purchasing process. And you can see that there are definitely opportunities out there in the market because, again, when we look at organizations and do some analysis of those, most organizations are completely separate as far as their procurement and account payables functions. Again, that means even if you do have a procurement or purchasing process in place, if accounts payable is not a part of that or is not aware of that, you're still going to slow down the process when it's time for them to pay the bills. And you can see as we go down, there's some other variations of that, but I show you this slide again so that you understand the opportunity that is there with organizations and with clients, whether they know it or not. A huge part of the spending process and managing and saving within that process is the approval process. So one of the things that you can do, or one of the biggest things you can do about the approval process is keep it simple. Identify the variables in the process. In general, the simpler the approval process, the better. In fact, we find that most organizations, once you fully automate, are having 2 levels of approval at the most. You can certainly have more, or maybe you have less, that depends. But when you automate it and manage your spending, you're going to make it simpler. Overly complex approval processes slow down the cycle, and they're going to frustrate employees, both the person that requested it as well as the person that needs to approve it. And then again, they're going to seek ways to maybe bypass that requisition process. You're going to want to establish multiple approval workflows with different levels of complexity, depending upon the details of the lines of the requisition. So some of those variables might be purchases more than X amount of dollars, purchases related to a project, associated with the general ledger account code in a specific category. So maybe you want IT purchases to go through additional scrutiny, whether it be just to make sure it's right or because those purchases tend to be more expensive. certain vendors? Do you want to monitor a certain vendor so that you can better enable the supplier relationship and make sure that you're getting the best deal? Maybe certain departments need more approval or additional approvals than others. And then if you have those set up, each requisition can then flow properly. And then ask the right questions, when you're designing the approval workflow. Designing the workflow requires some thought and consideration and input from the stakeholders. For example, what if any expenditures can be automatically approved? If you're allowing purchase requests from an approved vendor or an approved shopping list or catalog to bypass the usual approval process, if they're under a certain threshold, you can save time there because you have the controls in other areas and in other ways. Who should be approving it? You're going to have multiple workflows consisting of a different set of approvers, depending upon factors such as what their role is in the department, what's being requested, the amount of it's being requested, and again, the vendor that's involved, and look at those criteria as far as routing for approval. What is the process when an approver is unavailable or on vacation or just simply not responding? You don't want the requisition process to suffer if somebody's out of the office on vacation or not doing their job properly. Set up alerts, notifications to keep the process moving, alternate reviewers when a reviewer is unavailable, and an escalation workflow for when they're not being responsive. And then who's involved? Of course, each company is going to be different. Not all purchases will require the same level of review, but there's typical players in the purchase requisition process: the purchasing agent, the manager of the requester, the budget manager, the project manager, the subject matter expert. Again, that comes back to the IT department. Maybe the legal department needs to be involved, or the controller or the CFO. And then hold the line. Set up and establish budgets and budget compliance. One of the most important steps in the approval process is to ensure that the expenditure does not exceed the budget. To keep everyone accountable, you may want the employees and their managers to see the budget that's available when they're entering or approving the purchase. Even if you don't share the available budget, you may want the workflow to automatically flag the purchase requisition for over budget approval routing. And then finally, and this is a piece that a lot of people don't do or forget to do, fine tune. Evaluate and approve your process once it's been implemented. Once you have the process in place, monitor it with metrics, with reports to ensure that it's serving your goals and objectives. And you might want to think about, what types of requisitions are taking the longest? Who are the approvers in those examples? Are too many approvers involved? In most cases, having many approvers doesn't provide any real value or savings. You can often decrease the number, shorten the approval cycle without affecting the controls. Review the limits that you've set and the nature of the approval workflows you've established. And could you increase approval limits safely, maybe, on some categories of spend? Or perhaps routine expenditures like office supplies can bypass parts of the approval process. The approval process is a fundamental and vitally important step in your procurement cycle. It's a step made easier with a flexible and scalable procurement solution designed with configurable rules and workflows to promote efficiency and maintain accounting and control. And when you have the approval processes, notify the approvers when items are pending approval. When they haven't approved after a certain amount of time, have alternates available to approve in their place. Add ad hoc approval. So if an approver wants somebody else to be a part of the process, you can add them to the current process once you look at it yourself. Remind users, bypass levels of approval if they take too long, and then make it easy for the approver to approve with emails, mobile, and then offer unlimited rules and rules based at the line level. Those are important things to look at when you're talking about the process. We're spending a lot of time talking about approvals here, but again, one of the most important things is make sure that the approvals are simple. We mentioned mobile earlier. Use mobile to be able to approve. So now, while you're on the go, anytime, anywhere, view the details of the requisition and approve it from that mobile app with notes as you approve or disapprove. And then also, as a part of the approval process, one of the things that is sometimes missed is vendor contracts. Set up vendor contracts where based upon what you've negotiated with the vendor, what the cost of the item is going to be. And then you're able to track against that contract, enforce the contracted amounts for a specific period of time, and then monitor that contract to be able to make sure it's being adhered to by the vendor, improve the vendor or supplier relationships, and then you've also maybe eliminated a level of approval because you're purchasing a vendor contract item, and you're making that better and more efficient as well. And then last thing on approvers is approve your vendors. One of the parts of the manual process that I mentioned early on is that you're buying from unapproved suppliers or vendors. If you make the ability to enter a vendor in the procurement solution and have it approved before it can be a vendor that can be used as a part of the purchasing process, that adds to the overall process and the benefits that you're going to get from that. So when you talk about a procurement solution, it's not just about the requisition and the approvals. There's additional pieces and components that can be added there as well. Contracts, vendor approval, and then also number 4 here, which is guided buying catalogs. So you're making it easy to buy from your preferred suppliers. When you can direct the majority of your routine recurring purchases to preferred suppliers, you're maximizing your buyer power and your negotiated pricing. Make it easy for your shopper, the requester, to buy from preferred suppliers by setting up guided buying catalogs. And these catalogs can be organized by vendor, by department, by functional area, or other meaningful grouping, and include predefined vendor items, pricing, accounting information, such as the GL account. And the catalogs provide a simple and intuitive interface option for users to select items with a few clicks and automatically submit them for approval by checking out of the shopping cart. So again, set up catalogs to help the process, maybe eliminate a portion of the approval process and make it easy for the buyers. And again, this is designed to enhance the shopping experience. And then also from a guided buying catalog, you can automatically generate the requisitions as soon as they check out. Excuse me. The next thing is PunchOut capabilities. So PunchOut takes the catalog a step further because now the vendor is doing the work of setting up and maintaining the catalog for you. PunchOut's the name given to the technical protocol that allows you to directly connect to a supplier's product catalogs from your organization's procurement application. If your supplier supports PunchOut, your company's shoppers can browse and shop in real time on a vendor's website from within the procurement solution. When you check out, just like in the guided buying catalogs, the software creates a requisition which is ready for approval and then review. The advantages of using PunchOut are significant for both procurement staff and for the employees that use it to shop. The shopping occurs in real time on the vendor site. Pricing and quantities are always up to date. So you or your customer, your client, doesn't have to maintain the information as you do with your own catalogs. And the requisitions are created automatically with no manual data entry. You get a better experience because you're shopping from a familiar website. You're accessing it from within the application, and it adds more spend under your control and time savings throughout the cycle and overall improved efficiency. And then enable those catalogs, both PunchOut as well as guided buying catalogs, on a mobile app as well, again, to further enhance the process and enable users to shop those catalogs anytime, anywhere from that mobile app. And then the last reason, bring more spend under direct control so you can classify and account for it. You've heard the adage, you can't manage what you can't measure. The saying certainly holds true in the procurement department. Spending that breaks the rules by bypassing your requisition and purchase order system, often through unvetted suppliers, back to that supplier approval process, is referred to as maverick spending, and it can be quite costly. And maverick spending can grow. Essentially, it's asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Employees believe that the purchase is too small to matter. There's no formal process in place for smaller transactions, or the existing process is too cumbersome. Management is focused on large spend items, and doesn't enforce spending rules. E-procurement solutions save money by keeping the requisition process and associated approvals straightforward, sensible, and easy to use. So employees are more likely to follow the process, meaning you'll bring more spend under control when it's measurable and manageable. So in other words, people think that because it doesn't cost that much to get printer paper, or it doesn't cost that much to get pens, office supplies, that maybe that doesn't need as much control, or they're not worried about the controls. But there's a large amount of spend that occurs just for simple things like that. And then it can certainly add up, which is where budgeting comes into play. Implement a budgeting solution, whether it's GL budgets or project budgets, so that you can see where you are within that budget through the entire process. Give warnings if you're over budget, route for approval if you're over budget, and have visibility to that budget as well, so that at least at the approval level, they're going to be able to see where they are and then be able to make decisions or determinations on where that spend is occurring. And again, this will be real time based upon what's in the process as well as already gone against the budget itself. Add more details with questionnaires. Again, we're not trying to slow down the process. Most requisition solutions, procurement solutions, have the ability to enter notes or add attachments, but now questionnaires allow you to collect specific information. So you're enhancing the overall procurement process, because now you're able to ask questions about, well, what size screen do you want on that laptop? And how much memory would you like? What size of a disk drive would you like? And then let that be a little bit of a guide to the process by asking questions so that you don't have to go back and get that information later. And then throughout everything that you do, manage and monitor the status of the requisitions. This is important at all levels. I already mentioned it being important so that you can review how well your processes are doing. But how many times do requesters say, hey, where is that in the process? What happened to my requisition? When is it going to be shipped? How many times did the vendor say, has that check been cut? When am I going to be paid? Now you have visibility through every level of the organization at a glance, via metrics, via queries, via dashboards, so that you know where everything is in the process, along with alerts, reminders that can go out, and then also audit capabilities to be able to see if any changes were made, who made them, when they made them, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. So another key part of the overall process. And with that, Jason, if we can do our next polling question, what we want to do is maybe leverage some of the things that we just talked about and see, based upon your experience, what have you seen or your clients made you aware of as far as benefits that they would like to gain.
All right, poll question number 2 is live. Everybody should be able to see that on their screen. This is poll question number 2 out of 4. Amy's been active in the questions panel answering a couple of audience questions, but everybody's been voting very quickly, so let's see if we can save all of the audience questions for the end. Again, if anybody does have any questions for Foy, please type them into the questions panel. See if we have time for them once we get to the Q&A at the end. Again, there'll be 2 more polling questions, and we have almost 95% of you responding in. So we are going to go ahead and close this poll down in 3, 2, and 1. And all right, Foy, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jason. All right, so we asked that question, or that polling question, and then we want to show you, what some of the industry and analysts say as far as what do they see that customers are looking for. And you'll see some of the things that we've already talked about: cost control and supplier negotiations. Controlling what's being spent and then making it better for you to be able to negotiate with your suppliers to get better deals. Understand who your suppliers are, where is the money going, and obviously if you're spending more money with a certain or particular vendor, negotiate better deals with them, because if they know you're using a procurement process, then they're going to get paid quicker. And involve them in the process so that they understand, because of the catalogs or the PunchOut and the approval processes that you're using, once it gets to the purchase order and the matching process, there's not going to be the discrepancies. If there are discrepancies, they can be approved. So again, they're going to get paid faster. And you can see that spend visibility is right behind cost control as well, and supplier negotiations, and then some of the other things that we've talked about along the lines. All of these are important components to a procurement process, but again, this is what organizations are saying, what they'd like to improve on, and then what they would like to be able to do better. And a very important slide here to show you, this is going along with some of the comments that I made earlier in regards to the solutions. There's 3 different levels here of what does it cost per invoice or what does it cost per PO for a novice organization, with a novice organization being somebody who has one of those manual procurement processes in place, or maybe even they're using the requisition solution that's a part of their ERP. Again, because of the lack of robust approvals or the lack of visibility, it still costs a good bit per PO and per invoice. Mainstream is, maybe you've got a pretty good procurement process in place, but you're not linked with your accounts payable. Accounts payable doesn't have visibility to the process. And then those innovators are the ones that are taking advantage of the solutions that are out there. They're managing the solution that they have in place, evaluating it, and always looking to make it better. So when you do have clients or talk to clients, you can see here that there can be significant savings in the cost of the transactions, depending upon how much automation you have in place. And again, these savings go directly to the bottom line. Every dollar saved is another dollar earned there. So one of the things throughout all the years that I've been doing this, every time we see one of these studies, is just the amount of money that can be saved by automating the process, and also that enables the return on investment to be much more quick and strong there. All right, so let's take a minute or two here to kind of walk through some of those things that we just looked at. So what I'm going to do is try not to mess up too much on the screen here. Just simply switch over to a login, and log in as a user who is basically a requester. And this is the requester's view. Now, there's a good bit here on the screen. You could certainly limit what shows up here based upon the setup of the user. But as you look here, we're using the procurement solution to provide information and details to the requester and provide them with some additional capabilities based upon the security of their setup. On the right-hand side, one of the key visibility areas that we talked about is where are my transactions, what has happened to them, and what needs to happen to them. So at a glance, I can see that I've got requisition 218, 1 line's not submitted yet, 1 line's waiting for approval, 2 lines have been fully approved. Requisition number 217 was canceled. 214 has some different statuses, and it's waiting for approval from one person, a different person, for at least one of the lines. So at a glance, I know where those are in the process. You can also click and drill down and get additional information and details there as well. But you're always going to know where those transactions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them at each of those steps. Right here in the middle, those are those guided buying catalogs as well as punch-out catalogs that I mentioned earlier. So guided buying catalogs are internal catalogs. You can get a download from the vendor. You can set up and maintain them on your own. The benefits are that they can be by vendor, by department, by location, or even by type of item. Click, you'll be able to see the items that are a part of the catalog. You can categorize items, search for and find items. You can click on items to see additional information and additional details, and then you can build your shopping cart. And you can build that cart from that same catalog or multiple catalogs. Continue adding items to your cart, review the cart, and then remove or update anything that's needed, and then click on Create Order Requisition. So when I click on Create Order Requisition, it's actually going to generate the requisition for me. You could also have it automatically submit that requisition and immediately route for approval. You'll see here that the first 2 lines are from the internal catalog. I could now add additional information or additional details that may not have been defaulted in, and then I could also add additional lines if needed and then submit that for approval. So again, that would be internal or guided buying catalogs that are set up by the client. You've also got the catalogs that are PunchOut related. So Office Depot is a common vendor available for PunchOut. Office supply vendors as well as healthcare vendors are very popular on the PunchOut side. And what this does is it actually goes out to the Office Depot site. I can use my different menu options. I can search by keyword or by item number to find what I'm looking for. Once I find what I'm looking for, I can enter a quantity. I can then add those, I can then add those to my cart. I can continue to build my cart just like we did before, except now when I'm done, I check out and it now pulls that item onto the requisition. So we've shopped the vendor site. Remember, the advantage to PunchOut catalogs is that the vendor maintains those catalogs for you as their customer, and it's going to route for approval as needed. And once it's been fully approved, a PO will be created, and then it'll automatically send that purchase order to the vendor as a part of the PunchOut process. So again, just another way to quickly and easily get those items through the process using those PunchOut catalogs. And on our website, there are vendors that are listed that support PunchOut. It is an open industry standard, so any vendor can use PunchOut via standard CXML. And there's also third-party organizations like Greenwing Technology and PunchOut to Go and eStore Connect that also provide PunchOut services to help vendors that may or may not have the in-house expertise. Also a part of the requisition process, we touched on some of the additional areas. I've pulled up a requisition here that is a part of one that I've done before. And on that requisition, you can see that I've already got some lines that have been entered here. You can have notes or comments. You can have notes or comments with each of the lines. You can have attachments at the line level. So we just go grab an attachment here and then make sure that that's a part of the requisition to provide additional information and additional details. You have an inline attachment view that's a part of the process, so you're able to see that there. Also, again, remember we're logged in as a requester. You've got the budget information. So I've got GL budget set up in this particular example. So there's the GL budget details where you can have the different periods defined, what's pre-encumbered, encumbered, the actuals, the total, what's budgeted, and then what's remaining there. So you've got that capability to have the visibility at this level. You don't have to allow requesters a view to the budget information. You could just simply have them get a warning if they go over budget, and then also route for approval, and then give this visibility to the actual approver on that particular side. These are the questionnaires that we talked about, where in addition to letting somebody do free-form notes, ask them some specific questions about what do they want. Just because they answer these questions in that way doesn't mean that's what you need to give to them or provide to them, but it does allow you to get the details that you may need to let somebody else pick the actual item that you're going to get as it flows through the approval processes. These questionnaires can obviously have drop-down selections, free-form entry selections, or even check boxes. So enable that for those specific or special items and collect the additional information. And then also, we haven't talked a lot about inventory, but if you do have or manage inventory, that can be a part of the procurement process. That's a much larger conversation, but you can actually view the inventory information at this stage as well, and then see how much you have available on hand and ordered. So just another component that you can add here as a part of the overall process. All right, so again, that's the requester's view. Obviously, once you enter a requisition and then submit it, it's going to route for approval, and then the approvals can occur once the users are notified. But everything that we just did there can also be done as a part of a mobile application. So I pulled up a mobile emulator here that you can see. This is what it's going to look like on your Apple and or Android device. You can have the catalogs here. So you can go out and you can pick the catalogs. You can see the items that are a part of the catalog, select those, see additional information and additional details, and then build your cart. So you can build your cart from the same catalog or multiple catalogs, just like we did before. And then once you're done building your cart, you can review the cart, update as needed, and then create the requisition. So we actually created a requisition from that shopping experience on that mobile device. And you can see that requisition number 68 has been created. So again, simple, easy, quick, and straightforward. Obviously, when we did it with the mobile device, it automatically submitted it as soon as we checked out. And now that is available for approval. You can also do the approval from the mobile devices as well. So you're able to see what you have pending your approval. You're able to see open approval sessions, and you're able to log in, see the information that needs to be approved, approve or disapprove at a header level, approve or disapprove at a line level with notes to the requester that'll go whether you approve or disapprove, as well as viewing the additional information there. Make your selection and then process. If you approve items, they move on. If you disapprove items, they go back with notes, and you can make the notes required. And then you're able to do that again from the actual mobile app to speed up the approval process. And you're always able to go back in and view a history of the transactions via the mobile app as well, to be able to see where those are in the process. So again, mobile's been really big over the last few years about enabling the capability via the apps. Users are familiar with the apps. Users like the experience. And again, it makes it easier for them to adopt when you're enabling the mobile processes there. And then one other thing to show you here as a part of this process is email notifications. We talked about emails going out throughout the entire process. So a more traditional method of notifying you: get an email when you have items that are pending your approval. Click at the links in the email to go in and approve or disapprove. Or you can also reply to this message. If you reply to the message, there are brackets in the email. If you were to put a Y in the bracket, you're going to approve, and N, you're going to disapprove. And you can do that at the header level, or you can also do that at the line level. Again, a Y approves and N disapproves with notes to the requester. And again, we're doing this from the email. Send this reply, and without logging into the application, you're going to be able to approve and disapprove. Again, all about making it quick and easy for you to be able to get the requisitions process and keep on moving to make it more effective and more efficient for those users. All right, so that's a quick look at the product. We can obviously do much more detailed looks at the solution as needed. There's also additional demos available on our website, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the things that we've been talking about there. Now, I do want to show you procurement calculator that's available on our website, so that you're able to quantify some of the return on investment quickly and easily based upon what we just looked at there. So if I go back out here and I go to our website, which is ParamountWorkplace.com, up here at the top of the screen, you see where it says calculate. If I click there, it's going to provide me with a calculator where I'm going to be able to enter information and then look at the return on investment. So very few pieces of information that you're required to fill out here. Some of it's already populated for you. What is your level of automation? So put that number in there. We populated with some average salaries for requesters and approvers, but if yours are different, you can certainly change that. How many approvers? Again, industry average is 2, but that could be changed. And then how many purchasing agents do you have, purchasing managers, and then how many monthly requisitions do you issue? So make your selections there. That's a part of the purchasing process. But again, we've also got the AP process here as well. Put your details in specific to your client, or you can have your client go here as well. Click on submit, and then it'll show you what your current costs are, what your cost with automation would be, and then what your savings would be. So it goes back to the information on the slide that we looked at earlier. And then you can also download some additional information as well as infographics from that point as well. So again, that gives you a method from our website to be able to go calculate the return on investment, and that would allow you to be able to let your clients go and do that and understand the amount of money that they would be able to be saving in that particular example. And with that, I will ask Jason to do the next polling question.
All right, poll question number 3 should be live on everybody's screen. We do have one more polling question after this one, and we will trigger that one in a couple of minutes. So this poll is open. Again, if anybody has any questions for Foy, please let them be known in the questions panel. See if we have time to get to them in a little bit, but for right now, we're going to leave this poll question open for just a couple seconds longer. Again, this is the 3rd out of 4 polls. There will be one more remaining after this one, and we're going to go ahead and close this poll down in 3, 2, and 1. All right, poll is closed. Foy, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll go ahead and make this quick and easy and do the 4th polling question now before we look at some Q&A and provide you with some additional information. So, Jason, here's polling question number 4.
All right, poll question number 4 is live. Again, everybody go ahead and answer that one. If you have any questions for Foy, let them write them into the questions panel. We'll see if we can get to a couple of them right after this. Again, this is the 4th and final polling question. So for those of you who haven't had the screen on for a second, now is your last chance to answer a poll and qualify for CPE credit for today's session. Excuse me. Leave this open for just a little bit longer. All right, we're hovering around 92% of you voting in. I just want to leave this open for a couple seconds longer. Make sure that you all get the opportunity to earn credit for today's session. And I'm going to go ahead and close this poll down in 3, 2, and 1. All right, Foy, back to you.
All right, guys. So again, thank you very much for your time today, spending and listening to me talk a little bit about the trends in AP and procurement automation, and then ways that you can save as a part of those processes. We're always happy to answer any questions, as Jason's been saying as we've been going along. If you've got any questions, please feel free to enter them in the question section, and we can get to those now in the time that we have left. Or here's some contact information that is on the screen, where you can always reach out to us and get additional information as well as additional details. So Jason, if there's any questions at all, I'll be glad to look at those and answer those, or we'll move on to the last slide.
We've got a couple that have popped in that I think we can get some time in for. Arthur wants to know, what is the minimum annual spend for having a procurement for a non-for-profit?
So actually, that's a good question. So I'll answer it kind of maybe a little bit of a different way. We have organizations. It ultimately depends on what you need to do from a non-for-profit standpoint. So what we see mostly for nonprofits is that they are obviously getting their money from grants, getting their money from donations. So they need to be able to account for every cent of that spend. So when you look at a procurement solution as a part of a non-for-profit, I would say that any non-for-profit that needed to be able to manage their spend would be able to take advantage of automation. For a quick example, I've served on the board of a local sports organization for many years while I've been working at Paramount. And even though we implemented a purchase order solution that wasn't necessarily as fully automated as what we talked about today, we saw significant savings because we decreased the Maverick spending, and we were able to account for where the money was going, so we could report on it better and give better visibility for it. So my answer to that question would be, any non-for-profit or any organization that needs to be able to account for the spend can make use of automating the solution. Again, depending upon your size, maybe you don't go with a full-blown automation like what we've talked about here, but making sure that you put a process in place can show you savings. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper into that, reach out to us on the website here. Maybe we've got some customers that are your size or maybe some of the same categories of not-for-profits that you are, and we could get you some additional information and details.
All right, I think this will be the last one, is how do you capture if sales tax is charged and collected?
Okay. So there's actually several different ways. A little bit of that is going to depend upon what your financial or ERP system is. There's many financial ERP systems where we actually integrate to the tax schedules that are set up and maintained there. So behind the scenes, the requisition I showed you didn't have a tax schedule field on there, but as you're entering the requisition and ultimately when you create a PO, we are automatically looking at the tax schedule that should be associated with that request so that when the PO is created, it will calculate those appropriately. Again, there's many ERPs where we're able to link to that. We also do have our own tax schedule engine where you can set up and maintain the tax schedules within our application and do the same types of calculations. And then obviously for international business, when you have GST, VAT, we also account for that as well. So it is a part of the requisition and procurement process. It's typically hidden or happens behind the scenes, and we're able to look at the tax schedules in multiple different ways to make sure that those are calculated properly when the purchase order is created, and then also reviewed and approved once the invoice is matched.
All right, and with that, I think it's about time to wrap things up. So, Foy, you have anything on the last slide? Anything last you need to say?
Last thing, I'll just say thank you again. Thank you very much for your time. I do know that it is important. We greatly appreciate it and hope that you were able to get some tidbits of information out of this. And if we can be of any further assistance, please let us know. Thanks again.
And of course, Foy, thank you so much for presenting today. Thanks to you and Amy and everybody at Paramount Workplace. We're so happy to have you as part of the platform. Can't wait for the next webinar. And we're grateful that you were able to spend some time today and share what you know with our attendees. So first, before anything else, thank you so much for presenting.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to do it.
For everybody who's still with us, thank you for your attendance. We're going to be processing your credit for today's session by the end of the day today. You should all receive your CPE certificates via email. They'll also be available for you to download from your CPA Academy account. Your credit should be issued by the end of the day, and you'll get that along with the archived recording of this session, a copy of the handouts, and that would pretty much wrap it up from all of us here at CPA Academy. So again, thank you so much for your attendance. Foy, Amy, thank you so much for your time as well. We hope to all see you on future webinars. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care.